Hi everyone. In this recording, we are going to discuss the portfolio management process. In your syllabus, it is also called as investment planning process. It's one and the same thing. So, how do you start the entire investment management process or investment planning process? First, you meet up with your client and have an initial interview. So, what is an initial interview? You make your client comfortable, you tell what services do you provide, and get into a primary client agreement kind of a thing. So client agreement is where you lay out what duties you will have as an advisor and what duties the client will have as a client, right? So you lay out your duties as an advisor and duties of the client. So that's the initial interview. You meet up with your client, then you have a discussion with him or her, and based on that you clear your objectives or your duties and client's duties. Then you generally do a KYC and risk assessment. So it helps you to understand the client, in which we first get information about information about their age, about their marital status, about other personal details. Then we get details about income, expenses and savings. Then we look at what stability of employment does the client enjoy. Then we look at various dependents, and then we try to analyze through a risk questionnaire the client's attitudes towards risk. Now, why this step is important? Because the investment planning is heavily dependent on age, right? So if a person is extremely young, the risk appetite that he or she has is certainly higher. If a person is closer to retirement, the risk appetite is lower. Based on income, expense and savings, if the person has enough savings and manages his expenses well, so he has a little bit of a headroom, right, then investment planning is different versus someone who is totally into debt, have barely his income provides for his necessities. Then you have extreme limitations. Stability of employment also plays a role. If the employment is extremely stable, then you can plan certain things. But if the person works on odd jobs and the employment doesn't have pensions or any other support like extended health benefit, you have to plan for all of that. Dependents also, if a person has a lot of dependents on him, let's say he belongs to a sandwich generation in which he has kids to take care of as well as the person also has parents to take care of, then the number of dependents reduces the risk appetite and the planning would be different. Versus someone who is single, doesn't have any dependents on him, the planning would be different. Finally, attitude towards risk is person's own perspective towards risk. Certain people are risk averse, certain individuals are risk taking. So dependent on that, whether a person is risk averse or a risk taking individual, your planning will be different. Now, before going to the next stage, this is a life cycle model. So life cycle model is something that is a good guideline. It does not apply to each and every individual, but it's a good guideline. So it's like a book or a kind of a chart that you can refer to before actually making the investment plan for a person. So what does it say? This life cycle model says that as the age changes, right, the goals, the responsibilities and financial planning changes. So if a person is currently in pre-career stage, so 0 to 22, majorly the goals of the client would be establishing good money and getting into a good money management habits, creating a good credit rating. Milestones would be graduation. So financial planning or investment planning for this stage would be different. Same way, if early earning years are there, so pay yourself first principle. So save first and then spend is something that the client needs to focus on. Managing debt, do not get your debt out of hand. That could be focus. Balance your savings goal. Have adequate amount of property, health and life insurance. Consider mutual fund or RRSPs to start with, so that you can space your investments out and plan for retirement and get a head start in life. Milestones will be first job, new job raises, Mid earning period is when 31 to 44, so consider RESPs, because by the time you're 31 to 44 years you may have kids now, so you need to plan for their education, so consider RESPs. Have an adequate amount of property, health and life insurance, because this is the phase when maximum amount of dependents are there for you. Have a will and power of attorney. Investigate and understand your pension plan at work. Goals could be marriage, then first out, then start with a family. Prime earning years are 45 to 59. This is the stage when maximum wealth generation happens, because kids are old enough that they move out of your house, so dependents are less, your income is extremely high, expenses are less, so wealth creation happens maximum in prime earning age. So how much do you need to save? That's your focus. You need to pay off all your debts, children's education funds if anything is remaining, what to do about marriage of your kids, job security, elderly care. These are the questions that you need to look at. And empty nest, parent care, 10 years to retirement. So main thing is that your retirement is getting close by, so you need to start moving your investment into lower risk vehicles, because you cannot take risk in retirement. In retirement, what you can expect from government programs, then plan yourself in RRSPs and review workplace pension benefits, account for all your assets, retirement income distribution pattern. So retirement age is where you have a corpus and you need to manage it properly so it lasts your lifetime. And post retirement, you look for wealth management and estate planning, passing your wealth to the next generation. So this is a broad model. You can search, you can read this article that is mentioned out here, but this is just a guideline. Every person will have different goals, different objectives, but you can refer this before starting with his financial planning. The reason is sometimes people just don't know what they want. So maybe if you know the age, you can suggest that these could be the probable goals and start the conversation from there. So before we start managing clients' money, we have to create an investment policy statement. So investment policy statements has two parts: objectives and constraints. Objectives are what kind of risk the client can take, how much risk you can take on the portfolio, what investments are allowed, what investments are not allowed based on the risk. Then what are the return requirements? So does the client want to beat inflation? Does the client want to beat certain index? What is your objective of creating this investment plan? So you need to first jot down or first derive risk and return objectives, and then go to constraint. Constraint is LLTTU. So legal restrictions that the client may have. Sometimes the client is working in some company and he cannot buy additional shares of that company, so that becomes a legal restriction. Or maybe the client's wife is working as a board of director in certain companies, so you cannot invest there. So you need to consider those legal restrictions. Liquidity, sometimes the client has particular liquidity needs for a vacation, let's say for a vacation or for children's education, so you need to account for that. Then you need to account for time. So how much time do you have for your investment plan? If the time is short, you need to invest in certain liquid instruments. If the time is long, you can block your money away. Then tax constraints, so after tax returns is the focus. So sometimes if your client is in a higher tax bracket, maybe a dividend would be better than investing in a bond or debt, because dividends in Canada enjoy dividend tax credits. Then what are the unique circumstances that the client needs to look at? So unique circumstances may be religious beliefs, like alcohol and tobacco stocks are not allowed in certain religions, or banking stocks are not allowed in certain religions, or maybe personal beliefs like not investing in oil and gas because believing in the Green Deal. So something like that. So you need to jot down everything. Risk, return and constraints. Constraints are LLTTU, legal, liquidity, time, tax and unique. So once again, we interviewed the client, we did the KYC and risk assessment, then we looked at the broad model before starting the discussion with the client to create an IPS. Now the IPS has been created. So you start with investing. So you take the money from the client, or if it is a self-directed broker, you advise him where to invest. But that doesn't end the process. You need to rebalance the portfolio and reevaluate the portfolio. When do you reevaluate? Reevaluation happens when external factors are changing. External factors are market related factors. Maybe the stock market tanked, or maybe the stock market gave fantastic returns. For example, right now, it means in today's news, means Nasdaq is up, NYSE is up. The reason is there is a probability of interest rate cut in the US environment, in the US. So that's why markets are up. So certain things like this happen. So you need to reevaluate your portfolio. Or external factors can be recession happening, interest rate changes, inflation changes, wars, famines. All these things are external factors. So based on those external factors, if the performance of portfolio is changing, you need to change your allocations and portfolios. Then internal factors can also change. So internal factors are client specific factors. Maybe the client was a single person, then he got married or she got married. So that changes the investment plan. Maybe your client was a single family, but then they were a young family, not single family. Your client was a young family and they got a kid. So the plan changes again. So based on external or internal factors changing, you need to rebalance the portfolio. And finally, what type of portfolio management or investment managements are there? So there can be two broad types: passive investments, where you don't take investment decisions, you follow something. So when you don't take investment decisions, what do you follow? So generally you follow an stock index. So stock index is an aggregate of certain stocks. So maybe you're following Nasdaq or NYSE or S&P 500. That is your objective. So passive investment is further classified as indexing, where you follow the index to the means in black and white. So whatever stocks are there, you invest in that to the core, right? No deviations from the index weightings. You follow the index as it is. And then there is closet investing, or so you get close to an index. You may not follow the index 100%, but you get close to the index. Then there is active portfolio management. Active portfolio management has active indexing. So you follow an index, but you change the weightage based on your perspective. So let's say in index, banking weight is 20%, but you think banks are going to do fantastic. So you may change that weight in your portfolio to 25, even though it is 20 in the index. So this is active indexing. Then there is static and dynamic asset allocation. Static means you set a certain percentage, 60-40, and you do not change that. So let's say 60% in equity, 40% in debt, and you do not change that allocation. So that is static. Dynamic means based on the life stage of your client, you keep on changing the allocation. So when the client is young, you allocate more towards equity. As the client gets older, you allocate more towards debt. And finally, it is tactical. Tactical means you have a set allocation, but you have some room to maneuver. So let's say allocation is 60-40, 60% in equity, 40% in debt, but you think that there is a recession coming in equity markets, there is a downfall coming in equity market. So based on your assumptions, you can change it to 80-20. So move 40% of funds from equity to debt. So this is tactical based on portfolio manager's assumption. So that's it in this module. So once again, we started with a small story of Caitlin, and we then discussed various investment avenues. Then we discussed the portfolio basics, and we ended up with portfolio management or investment management process. In the next class, we'll start with how equity trading works. Thank you.